It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
One down, two to go. The New York Mets continue this postseason dream as they march into a very hostile environment, a loud and energetic Citizens Bank Park. They spot the Phillies a 1-0 lead. They give you the typical act of not being able to score inning after inning after inning. And then when you least expect it, the offense explodes. And the New York Mets defeat the Philadelphia Phillies 6-2. I don't know if I was the only one who felt that way, but as I sat down on my comfortable couch to watch game one of the NLDS, the very first time the Mets have appeared in this series since all the way back in 2015, I was shocked by my calmness. I had a calmness going into this game. Maybe it's the calmness of a best of five. You know, it's not a best of three. It's not a doubleheader against the Braves in which your season could literally end on that day. Maybe it's the idea of, you know what? It's a best of five. You take a deep breath. The pressure's on Philly, especially in game one, having their ace Zach Wheeler on the mound, and just sit back and relax. Maybe that was it. Or maybe for the first time, I was just confident. Maybe that was it. Maybe I sat there even when Kyle Schwarber hit the ball 10,000 feet off Kodai Senga. I sat there and I wasn't happy. Not going to say I was thrilled, but there was a calmness. I sat through this 3-hour baseball game very, very calm. And I'm curious if my fellow Met fan had that same calmness. And usually playoff games, especially the last three against Milwaukee, the doubleheader against Atlanta, there's a nervousness. There's like, I got a stomach ache. I don't like this. I've said that a lot. I don't like it. I didn't like watching game three. I was miserable throughout game three. But even while the Mets trailed frustratingly through 7 innings, and there were some umpiring calls that rubbed me the wrong way, and we'll get to it over the course of today's Rico, I don't know. I was very, very calm. So it's either the best of five, it's only game one, or it's number two. And I'm starting to think it's number two. I'm starting to think that the New York Mets have beaten the confidence into me and you listening right now. We have a calmness watching this baseball team. So even when this game began in a very frustrating way, think about how this game begins. Zach Wheeler is pumping it at 99 miles an hour. I'm sure the thought goes through your mind, gosh darn it, if Steve Cohen had bought the team a year and a half earlier, Zach Wheeler's a lifelong Met. Zach Wheeler's our guy. It's true, by the way. It's absolutely true. If Steve Cohen bought the team a year and a half earlier, Zach Wheeler's the ace. He would have outlasted even Jacob deGrom. Met history may look completely different. Who knows? But whatever. It happened. It was a long time ago. We need to get over it. I guess I'm not fully over it, but I should be over it. But he's pumping gas. He's looking dominant. Lindor made good contact in the first inning, but he had a line drive right at Bryce Harper. And then Vientos looked overwhelmed. Nimmo looked overwhelmed. And much like the Fox broadcasters were saying, and much like we're sick of hearing about, I admit the Philly crowd sounded electric. It also appeared as if no Met fans were there. And I am a little intimidated going into Sunday, in which I will be there. And I'll be taking my family. And I think the lesson I've learned is I'm going to be very, very quiet, like a church mouse, even when good things are happening. So you start this game off with the loud bank crowd that everybody loves to, go crazy about. Zach Wheeler's pumping 98, 99. The Mets look overwhelmed. And Kodai Senga 3 pitches into this really gutsy decision that Carlos Mendoza made that I'm good with. I wasn't against this decision. Gives up a mammoth home run to Kyle Schwarber. But as that ball landed into the seats at Citizens Bank Park, what I calmly thought to myself was, you know what? Yeah, 1-0 would be a great way to win a game. But if they're going to lose this game 1-0, if this is going to be the difference in this game, I'm not going to be mad at the decision. I'm going to be mad at the offense. I'm going to say, hey, you couldn't scratch out a run against the great Zach Wheeler. You couldn't scratch out a run against the Philly bullpen. So as Trey Turner came to the plate, the thought I had was, all right, Kodai, I know you're not going deep into this game, but settle down. If you can settle down, if you can get through the first inning, and I wasn't sure if he was going to come out for a second inning, I wasn't positive about it, but if you could at least get through the first inning, I'm not going to look at this decision as a disaster. I know some of you maybe you felt that way when Schwarber hit the home run. Giving up a run is not the killer. If you watched the Tiger game earlier today, giving up 5 runs is the killer. Letting a game completely slip away early, that's where you say, oh my God, you screwed this thing up. This is backfired. You go now to your bulk guy, in the Mets case, David Peterson, and you're already out of the game. Though 1-0 felt like a big deficit against Zach Wheeler, I was not going to come onto this, Rico, if they lost this game 1-0, saying, can you believe Mendy went to Senga? That's the difference in the game. So what was important to me was could Kodai Senga settle down? The crowd is moving. The crowd is shaking. He just gave up the home run to Kyle Schwarber. Can he respond? And credit to Senga. 2 innings, 1 run may not look amazing, but he responds by striking out Trey Turner. He clearly pitches around Bryce Harper. No problem with that. Mets did that a lot today, and I thought it really benefited them later in the game. He gets Nicholas Castellanos to strike out. He gets soft contact from Alec Boehm, and he ends up having, after the home run, a nice first inning. And then major credit to Senga and Mendy for letting him come out for a second inning after throwing 18 pitches. He comes out and pitches a 1-2-3 second. The opener thing is weird. You know, it's still a world we're not fully used to. We haven't seen a lot of opens from Met starters over the years. I can't say giving up a solo home run in the first inning makes that appearance a disaster. He gives up 2-3 runs. It's a different story. So I didn't think Senga was bad. I thought Senga was very encouraging. And while I don't know in this moment if I would go back to him in a game 5, I think we have to see how this series plays out. He is certainly an option. And he can continue to be an option for the Mets as he builds his way up throughout the postseason. And for now, if he is going to get another start, and hopefully it's more than just another start, maybe David Peterson is the perfect piggyback guy. I think David Peterson has earned more than that. But I think in these circumstances, in this game, it made a lot of sense. He pitched 2 days ago, even if it was very brief. And so clearly they didn't think they were going to be able to get 6 or 7 innings out of David Peterson. Because in my mind, I would have kept him in this game. Peterson obviously comes in the 3rd inning, and that's one of the critiques I have about Mendy, even though it worked out brilliantly. So Mendy gets the W, but like I always say, I'm going to tell you how I honestly felt. I'm not going to edit it just because of the results. And I think most of you probably felt that way too. Peterson comes in. He wasn't dominant. He did have a 1-2-3 5th inning, or not a 1-2-3 5th inning, but he issued a leadoff walk and then retired the last 3 batters, the top of the order. But I felt okay about David Peterson coming out for another inning. The question that we didn't know, and I think this is why the Senga decision to have him open made more sense as time went on, was how far are they comfortable with him going into this game considering he pitched 1 day ago? David Peterson threw 50 pitches. It's not a lot of pitches. I mean, it's a decent amount over 3 innings. That's a pretty good amount over 3 innings. But was David Peterson ever able to go 75 pitches, 85 pitches, considering he pitched a day ago? The fact they pulled him shows me that they had some concern about him doing that on only 1 day rest. But watching this game in real time with the Mets trailing 1-0 and the way David is throwing the ball and knowing once you take him out, you need 9 outs, maybe 12 if you're going to come back, I would have tried to have squeezed out another inning. Mendy didn't, and it all worked because this bullpen, which was such an issue not that long ago, delivered in a major way. Reed Garrett has had quite a circle of trust season, has he not? He was a guy on the roster, and you're like, what? Then he pitches really well early in this season in Atlanta. Remember when they had that comeback victory all the way back in April? And you're like, whoa, Reed Garrett looks pretty good. And then he became unhittable. He was Jabba Rules 2024, and Reed Garrett went from also ran to circle of trust into he's hurt, into he's back and now he sucks, into circle of trust, into he's mediocre, back into the circle of trust. He gives you 2 scoreless innings, 2 perfect innings in which he could not give up anything because the Mets couldn't figure out Zach Wheeler. Brilliant performance by Reed Garrett following David Peterson. Great performance by David Peterson. What was so impressive, to jump back to Peterson on one other thing, that has to make you fall in love with this guy. And moving forward, you write him in permanent ink in this Met rotation next year, is the balls. David Peterson walked, 3 guys in 3 innings. He put himself in tough spots. He faced Nick Castellanos with 2 men on base and 2 outs. He faced Brandon Marsh with a runner on second and 2 outs. He put the leadoff man on and had to get 2 big outs against Turner and Harper with runners in scoring position. He made the big pitch when he needed to. And that environment, this stage, the fact he pitched a day ago, recording that save, that ain't easy. And David Peterson did an utterly brilliant job. I mentioned earlier that the Mets pitching around Bryce Harper, I thought, helped them late in this game. I thought it really helped in David Peterson's final sequence of this game. So you go all the way back to the first inning. Runner on first, nobody out. Phillies up 1-0. Clearly, Kodai Senga said, I'm not letting Bryce Harper beat me. Bryce Harper has good career numbers against Senga. Senga has very good career numbers against Castellanos. He also did Kyle Schwarber, so that shows you how sometimes it doesn't matter. But Kodai Senga made a decision in the first inning. He said, I'm not going to let Bryce Harper beat me. And Bryce got nothing to hit. Nothing was close. He walked on 4 pitches. 2 innings later, Bryce Harper comes up again. In this spot, there's a runner on first and 2 outs. And I thought David Peterson sort of made the same decision and said, I'm not going to face him. If Bryce Harper chases out of the strike zone, great. I will not face him. I'll put a runner in scoring position. I'll go get a big out against Nick Castellanos. By the time Harper came up in the 5th, and I forget which guy said it, I thought the broadcast was actually decent today. I'm stunned I'm saying it, but I thought Adam Amin was good. I stunningly didn't hate Adam Wainwright. And I don't know if it's because we had him on the Rico during the offseason in the Killer series. And as much as he busted our balls, seemed like a nice guy. But it wasn't even that. It was that they said things, and I was like, okay, I'm fine with them.
AJ Przinsky was on point.
Yeah. Oh, he was on point a lot. He ripped the umpires, which I'll get to, and he made good points throughout the game. You're right. It was probably more AJ than it was Waino, but I like the broadcast. I'm sure I'm going to get hate email for that, but I didn't mind it. Now, talk to me after game 5 or game 4. All right, maybe a different story. But I think it was AJ who said it. Bryce Harper in his 3rd at-bat did not want to walk. He came up in that spot, runner on second, 2 out, 1-0 game. And I think he got jumpy against David Peterson and started chasing because here's this guy made for the moment, Mr. Philadelphia. And he's had a lot of clutch moments. I'm not mocking him. He's a great, great player. And I think Bryce Harper wanted to make an impact. And I think he got jumpy. It's a reminder on the greatness of guys like Bonds who can sit there for days at a time and say, if they're not going to face me, I'm going to take my walk. But there are moments in which you say, I want to make a big moment. I want to make a big play. I want to make the big swing. And Bryce got jumpy, and he worked out perfectly for David Peterson because he struck him out. That was a brilliant, brilliant sequence by David Peterson. So the pitching was outstanding in this game. Now let's get to the offense. This is one of those spots where, as frustrating as it is to not score any runs against Zach Wheeler, he allowed 1 base hit. He did issue a couple of walks. The Mets had the great opportunity in the 4th inning. The 1 hit of the game, the Vientos single, the walk to Brandon Nimmo, great at-bat. You got 2 on, you got nobody out, you got Pete coming up, you got Iglesias coming up. That was their moment to score, no doubt. That was their opportunity against Zach Wheeler. But that was the other thing AJ Przinsky said that I completely agreed with. And it followed the script of the game they had against Zach a few weeks ago, which is if they're going to score off Wheeler, someone's just kind of going to have to take a hold of one. Like stringing base runners and hits against Zach Wheeler is just not going to happen. And he was right about that. But as they failed in that 4th inning, Alonso had a rough beginning of the day with the 3 strikeouts. I was thinking to myself, have we all given up ripping him? Or when I check the Rico mailbag, am I going to see he still sucks? See, he's terrible. But as they failed in that 4th inning, and Zach Wheeler really never got challenged much after that. He did walk Lindor to lead off the 6th, but then looked dominant getting through the 6th inning, issued a 1-out walk in the 7th, looked dominant getting through the 7th. I was frustrated, but I understood it. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Like that was brilliance. That was brilliance on display. That's why the Phillies are a tough team to beat. They have a legitimate ace. Just because you call someone an ace doesn't make them an ace. He is an ace. He is a big-time starter, and we talked about it on the preview, Rico. His bad starts are good starts. At the worst, he's going to give you a quality start. And at the best, he's going to shut you out for 7 innings. What gave me hope, despite the Philly bullpen being their strength, was get his ass out the game, keep this game close, and maybe we have some Met magic. That was literally my thought. So as frustrating as it was to not do anything against Zach Wheeler, it was almost to be expected. And it's frustrating, but it's very different getting shut down by Zach Wheeler versus getting shut down by a guy like Tobias Myers. No offense to Tobias Myers. They had a hell of a year for the Brewers. But Zach Wheeler is one of the top guys. But they got him out of the game. He threw 111 pitches. The Mets deserve some credit. They had some quality at-bats. Really, from the second inning on, they at least made him work. They drew walks. I mean, think about it. From the second inning on, they drew a walk or a hit batsman in every single inning but the third inning. So they were able to take advantage of Zach Wheeler, work his pitch count up, not to score runs off him, but to get him out of the game. And look, the Philly bullpen, you all see the numbers. You know, Jeff Hoffman's got great numbers. Matt Stram's got great numbers. We didn't see Jose Alvarado. We didn't see Carlos Estevez. It's a very good Philadelphia Philly bullpen. But the Mets were able to give us the magic. It's the formula of the 2024 Mets. Don't score a damn run for 7 innings. Look lifeless. And I don't want to call this offense lifeless. That isn't fair. They weren't lifeless because they did produce quality at-bats. So I'll phrase it as, look like you can't score a damn run, get shut out for 7 innings, have your pitching keep it just close enough. Whether it's 3-0 in the Atlanta game on Monday, whether it's 2-0 with the bullpen giving up the runs in the Milwaukee game 2 days ago, or in this case, it's 1-0, just keep it close. And the Mets were able to strike, and they struck in that way like the first 2 games in Milwaukee where it wasn't the home run. The Mets have now won 3 playoff games. They've hit 1 home run, the one we all love, the one we'll remember forever. Francisco Alvarez. I hit my microphone in excitement. Francisco Alvarez, 0 for 2 in his first 2 at-bats. 1 hit so far in the postseason. Little base hit the left field off of Jeff Hoffman. And then again, much like 2 days ago, Francisco Lindor with the at-bat. That's the beauty of an MVP player like Francisco Lindor. He doesn't have to hit the ball over the fence. He doesn't have to rip a double up the alley. He can be that MVP with things like great at-bats. And much like he did against Devin Williams 2 days ago, the at-bat against Jeff Hoffman was a big one. And it was a Lindor one. And that's when, to me, I don't know how everyone else felt watching this game. That's when the confidence started to rise even more. Because now you're set up. You got 2 on. You got nobody out. You're only down a run because you've done such a great job of keeping this game close. And then Mark Vientos, who did not look great in that at-bat, who also struck out twice against Zach Wheeler. He did have the 1 hit against Zach, but for the most part, Mark Vientos had some moments in which he kind of looked overwhelmed. He didn't look great. And Mark Vientos, behind in the count, delivers the RBI single to tie this game up. Very, very impressive. And then, because you had guys go first to third, Brandon Nimmo's behind in the count. This time against Matt Stram, and he slaps the ball to left field. So you see the Mets behind in the count numerous times. Lindor was behind 0-2. I should point that out. Lindor's behind 0-2 before he draws the walk. Vientos is behind 1-2. He gets the RBI single. Brandon Nimmo's behind 0-2. He gets the RBI single. And even if it doesn't go over the fence, when Pete Alonso came up and the Mets are now up in this game 2-1, we all know they need insurance. They need to score more. And Pete needed to put bat on ball. He needed to get what he did, which was a sacrifice fly. Obviously, a 3-run home run would have been amazing, but hitting the ball to deep center field, driving in that 3rd run, very, very important. And then you get to another one of those at-bats, another one of those insane at-bats, Jose Iglesias, who did not look great in this game. He bounces into the key double play in the 4th inning. He popped up meekly to start the 7th. His hit streak stopped in game 3, and he puts together a clinic, an absolute clinic against Matt Strahm, in which he fouls off 7 pitches in a row. Are you kidding me? It turns into a 10-pitch at-bat, and 10-pitch at-bats are cool, but a 10-pitch at-bat in which it was 0-2 the entire time, essentially. No balls were thrown to Iglesias. So he put together, I'd love to see a stat on that, an 0-2 WAR. An 0-2 10-pitch at-bat. How often does that happen? And he bangs the single up the middle, in which now this inning, which is at 3-1, has a chance to be even bigger. You see Mendy say, I'm going to J.D. Martinez. I know you're going to a righty. That's fine. J.D. takes advantage of it with an RBI single. Starling Marte comes through with good contact on a sacrifice fly. And what we saw right there, that was like Kansas City Royals 2015 kind of crap. And I hate to use them in any kind of positive way because the 2015 Royals still haunt my dreams, but they would be relentless. And this offense in that 8th inning was relentless. No home runs, quality at-bats, behind in the count, battles, 2 sacrifice flies. So 2 of the outs until the 3rd one were productive outs. They were sacrifice flies. And I felt like they needed every one of those runs because it is still Philadelphia. It is still an offense that scored 4.9 runs per game. This is still a very good, dangerous team. And who knows if Edwin Diaz is truly available. We found out that he sort of was because he warmed up in the 9th inning, but they needed every aspect of that. And then, I shouldn't forget, Brandon Nimmo comes through with the insurance run in the 9th inning after Harrison Bader, behind in the count, dumps a base hit to center field, and by the way, goes out and steals second because I forget if it was Turner or Stott bobbled the ball on the caught stealing. And again, they come through with a clutch hit. Ryan Stanek made you a little nervous, a little tiny bit nervous. My nervousness in the 9th inning was if Schwarber gets on, I'll be nervous. If Schwarber gets on, in which now it's a save situation, and the tying run would be on deck, then I would be fully nervous. But Stanek was able to get Kyle Schwarber to fly out. Edwin Diaz did start to throw, so it showed you he had some level of availability, maybe only to face a batter or 2. But luckily, he was not needed, and the New York Mets complete another come-from-behind victory late in a game. Come-from-behind victory is a very overrated stat. You can be losing 1-0 in the 1st inning, score 22 runs in the 2nd inning, and that's a come-from-behind victory. But when you come back in the 8th inning in a tough environment, when you come back in the 9th inning of an elimination game, when you come back in the 8th inning of your season sort of being on the line in Atlanta, those are comebacks. Those are classic comebacks. So I know this game doesn't have the moment like the Lindor home run against Atlanta, like the Alonso home run against Milwaukee, but it had a lot of tiny, underrated, but very important moments that lead to this victory, as now the Mets you want to talk about putting the pressure on the Phillies? All the pressure on young Christopher Sanchez in game 2 with Luis Severino on the mound. And it's not like it's house money. I don't like the word house money. First of all, I spent enough money going to Philadelphia tomorrow. It sure as hell ain't house money. You go there to win. You also go there with a chance to step on a team's throat. When you're up 2-0 and you win the first 2 games on the road, you have increased your odds of winning a series by a lot. Doesn't mean the series is over, but obviously you put yourself in a great situation, in a great spot. And you don't want to miss out on opportunities. Look, the Mets missed out on an opportunity in game 2 against Milwaukee. Luckily, it did not come back and kill them because they had the great comeback in game 3 and they advanced. But as I talked about on the air on Evan and Tiki 2-3 days ago, there are a lot of examples in New York sports series in which missing an opportunity to really bury a team comes back and kills you. The most recent one being the Knicks with a chance to go up 3-0 on Indiana in a very close game 3. Missed opportunity. Game 3, Nets-Bucks a few years ago, missed opportunity. Game 2, Mets-Cardinals, if you wanted me to keep it to the baseball. Game 2 against the Cardinals in 06, one of the most underrated, horrible losses for the Mets. They had the game won. And then Scott Spezio did crazy things against Guillermo Mota, and instead of being up 2-0 going to St. Louis, it was 1-1. Changed the whole series. Doesn't mean they lost because of that game, but it helped contribute to it. So Game 2 in Philadelphia, a game in which I will be in the building, and the more I watch this game, the more I realize I'm going to be very quiet. All right, we're going to be very, very quiet, like church mouses. I'm even reconsidering wearing the Met jerseys. I think we will. I think we should. I laid out a proper plan. We'll wear former Phillies that are beloved Mets. Rico, Brogna, in my case, in my son's case. Tug McGraw, in the case of my dad. It's like a peace offering to those great, wonderful people of Philadelphia. But there were no Met fans there, or at least it didn't sound like there were Met fans there. Maybe that changes for a Game 2. Maybe if you're listening to my voice right now, you say to yourself, F it, I'm up 1-0. I'm going to go on SeatGeek. I'm going to buy some damn tickets. And I'm going to show up to Philadelphia. Certainly possible. Certainly possible. So maybe we will make a bigger impact in Game 2. Let me bitch about the umpiring. A little bitching about the umpiring, which sounds a lot better when you win. When you lose, it's whining. I'm just going to make fair criticisms of the umpiring. Is that, I think that's a good way to look at it. Number one, I want to go to the replay review that the Mets tried in the third inning of this game. If you go back to the third inning, Trey Turner was on base, and David Peterson tried to pick him off. And I don't want to say clear as day, because clear as day means he was out by a mile. So it was clear as morning dew that Trey Turner was out at first base. We all saw the replay. It was very close, but Pete Alonso's glove, and not his laces, the glove, clearly touches Trey Turner before he gets back to first base. What are we doing? Why do we have replay? What's the point of it if you're not going to overturn a call while close clearly was a mistake on the field? To the credit of David Peterson, that could have been a disaster. They walked Bryce Harper right after that, and Nick Castellanos hit one deep to right field. Could have gone out. Could have been a double. And then, yes, we would be bitching very loudly about the decision for that to not be overturned. The other one that I thought was really big that may be forgotten about, but I think when I bring it up, you will say, damn right, that pissed me off. I guarantee you cursed at the TV. We go back to the fourth inning. The Mets have 2 on and 1 out after Pete Alonso struck out looking, and Jose Iglesias has a 2-0 count. 2-0. And the 2-0 pitch was clearly ball 3. And it was called a strike. It changes the entire at-bat. It turns into an at-bat in which the count eventually settles at 2-2, and then he bounces into a double play. It's a big sequence. If that is correctly called a ball and the count is 3-0, maybe he walks him. Maybe Iglesias gets a good pitch to hit, because after the 2-0 pitch was called a strike, and it wasn't a strike, Iglesias then started chasing a 2-1 slider that was well off the plate that he would not be chasing if the correct call was made. That was a bad call by Andy Fletcher. It is what it is. I don't think he had a good game. I think, if anything, Zach Wheeler was getting more calls than the Mets. And I don't usually whine about that. And why would I whine about it? The Mets won. So I'm just making an observation. The other one, specific example, because I don't want to just say Andy Fletcher was bad without giving you at least a second example, was the Bryson Stott at-bat the following inning. It's the bottom of the fourth inning. Bryson Stott took a 2-2 pitch that, to me, it was borderline, but the way Andy Fletcher was giving Zach Wheeler the outside corner should have been strike 3, turned into a walk. Luckily, again, the Mets and David Peterson were able to get through the inning. So despite the bad call turning into a base runner, the Mets were able to make the big pitches. And look, that's the reality of bad calls. Bad calls happen. You know, sometimes we get the benefit of bad calls. It's about taking advantage of it. The Phillies didn't. I mean, they sort of did with Iglesias because he bounced into a double play. They didn't on Trey Turner, in which he was clearly out, and they didn't on the Bryson Stott at bat. So that's baseball. That's baseball, Susan, as some may say. But nevertheless, wonderful effort by the bullpen. Wonderful effort by David Peterson. The offense waits until the 8th inning to explode. And here we go. OMG. The New York Mets have a 1-0 lead in a division series against the Philadelphia Phillies with Luis Severino on the mound in Game 2 against Christopher Sanchez. Let's go to some emails. I assume some happy emails. We'll start off with Ralph. Ralph said the sucked and the broadcasting crew were Met haters and sweating Philly. Awful, but we overcame. Obviously, I'm with you on the umpiring, not with you on the broadcast. I thought the broadcast was actually very good. But again, I think I'm going to get killed for that one. Junior writes, wow, what a game. Wheeler was dealing. I was listening to the game on the radio, and I told my wife they're about to come back and win. And as this game was going on, all I could think about was the game on Thursday and how they're never out of it until the last out. Senga looked great. Peterson was amazing. And credit to Reed Garrett for those 2 innings. Mendy hitting all the right buttons. See, this is what happens now. We're all believing. We're all like watching a game in which our team is losing, and we're thinking to ourselves, we're going to come back. Positive Tommy wants to chime in. The Mets are 2 wins away from the NLCS. This team showed once again how tough and resilient they are. I believe in the power of positivity. I believe in Positive Tommy. I will lead us. A lot of eyes from Positive Tommy, but that's okay. Negative Dan writes, simply how? Yeah, there is a lot of how did that happen? Yee Lee writes, F the Wilpons and Brody and all those demons. Yes. Zach Wheeler should be a New York Met, and it's frustrating. But the reality is, it is the fault of the dead guys. And getting man at the dead guys doesn't serve any purpose. EG writes, I do not fear the Phillies bullpen at all. Oh, it's good. Why should we? Michael writes, Edwin Diaz should get the bottom of the 8th. This is interesting because I was thinking about this briefly. Evan and Pete, if there was ever a time for Edwin Diaz to get the 8th inning, it would be now. Top of the Phillies order coming up, even at 5-1. Why not go to Edwin Diaz unless he's unavailable? Do you agree? I love this team right now. That top of the 8th was a RISP clinic, runners in scoring position. So when the Mets initially took the little lead, it was 2-1. I absolutely thought about it. And I figured Edwin would not be available for 6 outs, but this is the perfect moment to get him to get the 3 outs in the 8th inning and go to somebody else in the 9th inning, which I've talked about a lot because the Phillies had the top of the order coming up. So, yeah, if it ended up being 2-1 or 3-1, I would have done that. But I think when they got it to 5-1, it's not about being cocky. It's about being smart, and it's about looking at the long game. If you pitch Edwin Diaz in this game, based on the workload he's had this week, he's not available tomorrow. So I only want to use him if I have to. So once it was 5-1, I thought going to a Phil Maton made complete sense. I think obviously at 6-1 in the 9th inning, the only way you were going to go to him is if the tying run came to the plate or right before the tying run came to the plate. And clearly that's what Mendy was going to do because he had him warming up. I think there are circumstances, and hopefully it'll be reset now because the Mets are on a normal playoff schedule. They will play Sunday. They'll have an off day. They'll play 2 days in a row. There'll be an off day so that they will have a fully rested bullpen where, yeah, with a 5-1 lead, you'll say, I'm not screwing around. I'm going to my best reliever. Now, the Yankees in their game, which I have not started on DVR, they can be more aggressive. They have a fully rested bullpen, and they have an off day the following day. I think in the case of the Mets, they are still managing off of all the games they've played. And so I agreed with Mendy. I would not have used them with a 5-1 lead. If it's 2-1, it's an opportunity. I have a lead. I probably would have done things a little bit differently. But the Mets got away with it. They never had to use him. And so warming up in the bullpen, and it didn't feel like he threw that many warm-up pitches, shouldn't affect his availability for Sunday, in which I would go for the kill. Like managing ahead, if the Mets are fortunate to have a late lead against the Phillies on Sunday, I think you got to go for the kill. You have an off day Monday, taking a 2-0 lead in a best of 5 with the first 2 games being on the road, got to take advantage of it. Great victory. The plan is I'll be going to Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon with the family. We will attempt a drive home Rico Brogna as we leave Citizens Bank Park, hopefully in one piece, hopefully with the car in one piece, and hopefully with victory number 2. You can always interact with us. The ricob@gmail.com is our email. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. LGM, baby. Another Rico right after game 2. Thanks for listening and subscribing to Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.